Hi guys, Charlie with Boxing Focus, and I wanted to do a quick rundown of Mayweather's and Pacquiao's accomplishments at welterweight to really see how they stack up in terms of who they fought. Kind of helped me make up my mind. I've almost made up my mind, but I felt this was a useful exercise. So you can go through it with me. You go to BoxRec, pull up Floyd Mayweather Jr. and pull up Manny Pacquiao. I'm going to start with Floyd. So Floyd's career, let's bring him up on BoxRec, starts at 2006 when he comes up to welterweight and fights Zab Judah. In fact, no, the fight before, 2005, Sharma Mitchell. So Floyd has been fighting at welterweight for a decade. Sharma Mitchell, one fight previously at welterweight prior to fighting Floyd Mayweather, not an established welterweight. So what the criteria I'm looking for, whether they're established at welterweight, whether they're comfortable at the weight, are they a bona fide welterweight at that point? Obviously, many fighters step up into the welterweight division and then will stick around and become bona fide welterweights, but at the point that they were in the ring against Mayweather and against Pacquiao. So at that time, Sharma Mitchell, not a bona fide welterweight. Zab Judah. Now, Zab Judah had a few fights at welterweight prior to fighting Floyd Mayweather. The thing that goes against me saying Zab Judah's a bona fide welterweight is he would eventually go back down to light welter. And the fact that he would, so late in his career, re-establish himself at light welterweight makes me say no, not a bona fide welterweight. He was fighting up there probably for the names rather than anything else, not because he was suitable for the weight. So, next up, Carlos Baldomir. Baldomir was a career welterweight and on a good winning run when Mayweather fought him, including victory over Zab Judah. So, number one, Carlos Baldomir. Next up, the golden boy, Oscar De La Hoya. That was at 154. At super welterweight. So we'll start another little list. 154, Oscar De La Hoya. Ricky Hatton. This was the fight after which Mayweather infamously retired. Hatton had had one fight at welterweight prior to fighting Mayweather, not an established welterweight. And it's frustrating Floyd Mayweather retiring after fighting Ricky Hatton, because it was at a time when the welterweight division was becoming stacked. You had the likes of Paul Williams, Antonio Margarito, the undefeated Miguel Cotto, Joshua Clottey. Mosley had just come back down and was still close enough to his prime to be relevant. There was a load of really, really good fights to be made there. And Mayweather pulls Hatton up from the lower weight instead of fighting one of these big, strong welterweights, and then says, "Nope, I'm done. I'm out the sport." Which for me, I don't know. Floyd Mayweather fans will justify it one way or another. Floyd Mayweather may well believe in himself that it wasn't the prospect of fighting these guys that made him think about retiring. It was just the fact that he'd grown bored of the sport for a bit and needed a break. Whatever, he still got out the sport when there were a lot of good fights on the table. Anyway, he comes back and he makes his comeback against Juan Manuel Marquez, not a bona fide welterweight. In fact, was fighting at lightweight and only for a few fights previously. Was fighting at super featherweight before that. Fleshy, looked horrible, and had eaten himself basically, or drank piss to get himself up to the welterweight division, and it showed. Sugar Shane Mosley. Alright, he was past it, but yes, he was a bona fide welterweight. Had been campaigning there for some time and had come back down, in fact, after struggling at 154. So, number two, Sugar Shane Mosley. After Mosley, Victor Ortiz. not a bona fide welterweight. He had just had one fight at welterweight prior to fighting Floyd Mayweather against Andre Berto. Of course, we know where Andre Berto now ranks in the scheme of things. Not a bona fide welterweight. Victor Ortiz, Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto, or Cotto, depending on how you like to pronounce it, was at 154. So that goes in the 154 column, second fight there. Although I do regard Cotto as a welterweight who's kind of masquerading as a super welterweight, or a light middle. It's, yeah, with Mayweather and Pacquiao around at 147, especially Pacquiao, I just think he went to greener pastures, as it were. After Cotto, Robert the Ghost Guerrero had 2 fights at welterweight prior to fighting Mayweather. Still looked fleshy. Not a bona fide welterweight, sorry. A win over Aydin, who has done nothing in his career, although was unbeaten at the time. A win over Berto. Then Floyd Mayweather. Not a bona fide welterweight, I'm sorry. No. Saul Canelo Alvarez. This was at 152, a catch weight, which was one of the most hypocritical things that Floyd Mayweather could have done. Unfortunately, if you're going to be so publicly against Manny Pacquiao using catch weights, you don't really get to use them yourself without being criticised for it. Still, good fight for Mayweather to take from a fan's perspective. One of the few risks he's really taken in his career. He couldn't have known, well, maybe he had guessed it, but the world could not have known that Alvarez would fight such a, I don't like to use the word, but cowardly fight. He needed to really just bite down on his gum shield, fight like Margarito or Paul Williams, just get forward and unload. But he didn't. And then Marcus Maidana, bona fide welterweight, had had 5 or so fights at welterweight prior to fighting Mayweather, and he fought him twice. So, welterweight king Floyd Mayweather, in a decade of fighting at welterweight, has fought 3 bona fide welterweights, although one of them twice, for a sum total of 4 fights. When you write it down like that, that is pretty damning. Pretty damning. I mean, this is the pound for pound king. This is the best ever. That is the pedestal on which he has put himself. Are you kidding me? That's poor. That's really poor. When you write it down in terms like that, maybe you're disagreeing with me. Maybe you're saying no, he's fought 8 or 9 bona fide welterweights. Please do comment and say. But seriously, by my count, 3 guys, which one he fought a second time. That's. I mean, at least he did a few things at 154. I mean, De La Hoya faded, but still tight fight. I mean, you got to say, prime De La Hoya beats Mayweather on that showing. If the fight was that tight, with De La Hoya at 33, and bearing in mind De La Hoya had had 1 fight in 2 years prior to Mayweather, if you took 3 years, the 30-year-old De La Hoya beats Mayweather. I just don't see it any other way. And then Cotto, competitive fight, good competitive fight, and Alvarez, well, less said about Alvarez's performance the better. So, give him credit for taking those fights. Manny Pacquiao, let's move on to Manny. So Manny Pacquiao makes his welterweight debut well after Floyd Mayweather retires. So Floyd Mayweather retired in December 2007 after fighting Hatton. Manny Pacquiao makes his welterweight debut against Oscar De La Hoya a year later, in fact, December 2008. Is De La Hoya a bona fide welterweight? No. Um, he couldn't make the weight. He hadn't fought there for a decade. You know, as much as people were picking De La Hoya going in based on size, the fact that he was incapable of making the weight means you can't, you know, in hindsight you just can't say that he was a bona fide welterweight. Ricky Hatton was at super lightweight. Miguel Cotto, that was at welterweight, and he was a bona fide welterweight. Do believe he was the welterweight champion when he fought Manny Pacquiao. He'd had a few fights at welterweight anyway, because he had originally been, I do believe, yes, go back far enough, he was winning titles as super lightweight, but that was, you know, a good number of years before he fought Pacquiao, a good 5 years, 4 maybe. So number 1, Cotto. Number 2 is Clottey. Clottey, bona fide welterweight, big strong guy, eventually moves up to 154, dangerous fighter for guys that he could catch up to. I think Mayweather would have beaten Clottey if I'm honest. Just Clottey wasn't dynamic enough, even if he was tough. He wasn't aggressive enough, but we're not talking about who would have beaten who, we're talking about how many bona fide welterweights Manny Pacquiao's fought, and Clottey is number 2 on the list. After Clottey came Margarito. Margarito was at a catch weight at 150 pounds for the 154 pound belt. We'll put him in the 154 pound column for Manny Pacquiao. Right. After Margarito, Sugar Shane Mosley. If he counts for Mayweather, he counts for Pacquiao, as far as I'm concerned, despite the fact, again, he was a year older. He was pretty badly faded by the time he fought both of them. It would have been interesting to see Mosley versus Mayweather around the time Mayweather retired. Possibly Mosley versus Pacquiao around the time he fought De La Hoya, but you know, that was never on the cards. And of course it was not on the cards for Mayweather either, because he retired. But he goes down as number 3 for Manny. After Mosley, we have Juan Manuel Marquez, 3rd fight. At this point, Marquez, not a bona fide welterweight. He had only had 1 fight at welterweight prior to this. Of course, that was the defeat to Floyd Mayweather. In fact, was he fighting at lightweight again after that? I mean, this is to show you how ridiculous Floyd Mayweather's dredging of Marquez up from lightweight was. After losing to Mayweather, he goes back down to lightweight. Yeah, just a despicable choice of opponent. Just Mayweather trying to one up on Pacquiao, as far as I'm concerned. After the 3rd Marquez fight, we have for Manny Timothy Bradley Jr. in 2012, the infamous split decision loss. At this point, Bradley had just come up from 140, not a bona fide welterweight. So after Bradley, Marquez again, and the 4th fight, the infamous stoppage. This time he was a bona fide welterweight. It's again, he'd just fought at super lightweight previously, but he'd grown into the weight finally. It was his 3rd fight at welterweight, and he'd kind of been edging up there, even though he was dabbling in the weights below. So yeah, number 4, Marquez, the 4th fight, bona fide welterweight. Then after Marquez, Brandon Rios. Bam Bam Rios, obviously big, very big for the weights. But he hadn't been fighting at welterweight prior to fighting Manny Pacquiao. He'd been fighting at super lightweight. And then 3 or 4 fights before that, lightweight, not a bona fide welterweight, doesn't go down, sorry. Timothy Bradley Jr. The second fight, the victory. This time Bradley was a bona fide welterweight and had 4 or 5 fights at welterweight since supposedly beating Manny Pacquiao. Where are we? Sorry. Just clicking. Yep. Yeah, after beating Pacquiao, he then fights Provodnikov and Marquez at welterweight. It's just the 4th fight for him at welterweight against Manny Pacquiao. So he goes down number 5. Then after that, Algieri, not a bona fide welterweight, was at 144 anyway, so wouldn't have counted anyway. Right, so that leaves us the final tally of 5 opponents at welterweight who were bona fide welterweights for Pacquiao. Cotto, Clottey, Mosley, Marquez and Bradley, and 1 fight above that against Margarito, even if it's got an asterisk by it. Margarito was so big and strong compared to Pacquiao. Sorry, itchy. I mean, it's not stellar, is it? It's not amazing. It's still good. I mean, Bradley's better than that. Bradley would have beaten everybody that Mayweather fought at welterweight, as far as I'm concerned. And he quite probably beats everyone at the 154-pound limit that Mayweather fought. I think he gives De La Hoya a competitive fight, that version of De La Hoya anyway. I think he beats Cotto, and I think he probably beats Alvarez, based on Alvarez's showing against Mayweather. Margarito, I mean, Margarito gives anybody a hell of a fight. Would have been fascinating. I really wish Mayweather had fought Margarito or Paul Williams or both. I mean, you saw with Paul Williams against Erislandy Lara. Yeah. And of course his fights against Sergio Martinez. Martinez much bigger than Mayweather. I mean, there's all these fascinating fights that Mayweather's risk-averse strategy of picking opponents has avoided. You know, I mean, Mayweather should have been a 160-pound champion. He should have been in the ring with Martinez instead of Miguel Cotto. That would have been a super fight. It would have been absolutely massive. But no, doesn't want to fight somebody that might be able to hurt him, I guess. Even though, in hindsight, we find out that Martinez was shot. But Mayweather wasn't prepared to take that risk, it would seem. That fight was never on the cards, never discussed. In a different era, somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard would have been all over that. I mean, Duran fought bigger guys. I mean, Duran was smaller than Leonard, Hearns and Hagler, was still fighting them. Just a different attitude to the game. But yeah, so looking at that, I'm not blown away by Manny Pacquiao's list of opponents at welterweight, although I think Bradley's probably the pick of the lot. And of course the strong version of Marquez. Saying that, I said Margarito, he was more dangerous than De La Hoya or Cotto or Alvarez in terms of what he was, the kind of intensity and the intentions that he brought. I thought both De La Hoya and Alvarez were too caught up in trying to outbox Mayweather. And De La Hoya ended up following Mayweather around the ring too much in the later stages of the fight, but still, food for thought. This is Charlie with Boxing Focus. Let me know if you agree, if you're similarly underwhelmed by who these guys have been fighting at welterweight and above. Thanks for watching.